The Charlotte Ledger Podcast is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
Hey, it's Tony Messia with the Charlotte Ledger, and you're listening to the Charlotte Ledger Podcast. You can find out more about the Charlotte Ledger at thecharlotteledger.com. And be sure to sign up for our newsletter, which keeps you in the know with original news and information from our team of professional journalists. It will make you smarter about Charlotte. Today, we have something a little bit different for you. There have been few people who have had a greater effect on this city than Hugh McColl Jr., the former chairman and CEO of Bank of America. McColl was a major player in consolidating the banking industry in the 1980s and 1990s, and he did it in a way that benefited Charlotte by keeping the bank's headquarters and good-paying finance jobs here. And he and a handful of other influential Charlotte leaders pushed to improve the arts and revitalize Uptown and many, many other civic things around town that helped Charlotte grow. Now, in September of 2024, McColl, who is now 89 years old, was interviewed in front of an audience at Queen's University of Charlotte at an event called Legacy of Leadership, a conversation with Hugh McColl. And frankly, he doesn't give a lot of speeches. At this talk, he talked about leadership. He talked about running one of the biggest banks. He talked about his background. He gave advice for success. It was a really interesting talk. And the Charlotte Ledger asked Queen's for permission to share the audio of the event on this podcast. And the university agreed. And so here we are. Now, Queen's did ask that we point out that the talk by Hugh McColl was on the occasion of the launch of the newly designed MBA program at Queen's University of Charlotte's McColl School of Business. You probably gathered that school is named after Hugh McColl. They wanted us to share information with you about that McColl MBA program. They say it's a dynamic program tailored to meet the evolving needs of Charlotte's professional community. It offers unparalleled flexibility, field-based consulting experiences, networking opportunities, and a strong leadership focus inspired by McColl himself. Students are empowered to accelerate their careers by selecting a customized program with multiple start dates and 8 specialized tracks, including executive coaching and entrepreneurship. If you want to discover how the McColl MBA might be right for you and could shape your future, you can visit www.queens.edu/MBA. So without further ado, here's the audio from the Queen's University of Charlotte event featuring an interview with Hugh McColl. He's being interviewed by Will Sparks, who is the Dennis Thompson Chair and Professor of Leadership at the McColl School of Business at Queen's University of Charlotte, where he also serves as the Director of the Office of Leadership Initiatives. I just want to say, personally, I'm happy we're able to be bringing this to you and that we are able to do that. And many thanks to Queen's and to its leaders for allowing us to share the audio with our listeners. Enjoy.
Thank you for being here, Mr. McColl. This is such an honor for us, and we appreciate you sharing your insights and a little bit about your journey with us this evening. And so I thought I would dive into the discussion tonight that's going to focus on your legacy of leadership to learn a little bit more about you and sort of your background. And so maybe start with just telling us where you were born and your first job. I know your family had a very large impact on you and your development. So would you just tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I grew up in a small town down the road here, Bennettsville, South Carolina, which was probably famous as a place you drove through on the way to the beach. Anyway, I had 2 brothers and a sister older and 2 younger brothers, and we grew up like weeds, playing in the backyard and playing football and baseball and whatever the season was, basketball. And very early on, my father put us to work on the farms. We were in the cotton business, but he made us work on the farms in order to tell us it was a really terrible job and you ought to get out of town, which we did. And then I guess by the time I was 16, I was keeping books for McColl and Company, which was a cotton company. And so I learned double entry bookkeeping when I was 16 and kept books for the family business. But when I was 14, I was driving the labor bus for the farms, and I would weigh cotton, and I had to win over the people who were picking the cotton. They weren't so sure about a little 14-year-old kid weighing the cotton and writing down how much we owed them. But I won them over by being correct about what I did. Mm-hmm. And so that was sort of my early business experiences. And of course, I grew up in a household that really talked about business all the time. I always talk about my grandmother. When she was on her deathbed, I raced down to Bennettsville to see her. And said, "Grandmother, how are you doing?" She said, "Oh, son, I'm so glad to see you. Do you think General Motors is going to declare an extra dividend this year?" So that's how I grew up, Grandmother thought God sent McColl's here to run the world, so I was given a lot of confidence growing up. A lot was expected of me.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of folks that have worked with you over the years here with us tonight, and I would love to talk to you a little bit about your leadership, your approach to leading others. And so how would you describe your leadership style and your approach for motivating others?
Well, I really don't know how to do that, but I would say this, that I was very lucky. I worked with really terrific people, and I tried to surround myself with people smarter than I was and point them in the right direction and give them the head and let them do it, and they did it. And many of them are here tonight. I've seen a lot of the old guard here. We set goals and we achieved them. I learned a lot of that in the Marine Corps, and about knowing where you want to go and being able to articulate it, and then put a team together that can do it. So that was basically it. One of the things we were good at is that we stuck together. We were one team. We liked each other. We didn't like anybody else in the banking business. They would all tell you that's true. They didn't like us either. But we worked on that so that we didn't have any clubhouse lawyers. We were always headed in the same direction as a team, and that's what really allowed us to be successful. Mm-hmm. Plus, we worked hard. And so I guess my philosophy of business has always been, if you take care of your people, that'll take care of the customers, and that'll take care of the shareholders. Mm-hmm. That's really what I think is the way to run a business, is to look after your own people.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you about who influenced you. We've talked a lot about the folks here that you've influenced and impacted all of us to some degree. But what about your mentors coming along? Who had the greatest influence on your approach?
Well, I don't think there's any question but that my father taught me almost everything that I knew about business and thought about business, which were simple rules like always do what you said you were going to do. Your word was your bond. It was a great surprise to me when I first ran into a bad loan where somebody had told me they'd do something and they wouldn't do it. I had a great learning experience that everybody didn't believe that. But anyway, my father was very important to me. I worked for Tom Stores for many years, and he was a very intelligent man. And he taught me how to solve problems, how to take a problem apart and take each little piece and do something with it. Mm-hmm. I guess also that my first boss was a man named Louis Henderson, who was a very tough hombre, and he taught me all about banking. He taught me about the business itself. So I had a lot of teachers. There were many others along the way, but I learned on the job from very good people. But I would say Mr. Stores and my father were the two people that taught me the most.
Okay. But you always relied on your intuition. We've talked about that before too. Your gut. You trusted your gut. You had the left brain and took the problem apart and analyzed it, but then you had that sixth sense, it seems like, too.
Well, I don't know about that, but I will say this, that in the Marine Corps we had a theory, which is when in doubt, attack. And so basically I had my three greatest business triumphs coming off of bad quarters of bad years, and because what we did, we couldn't figure out what else to do, is we attacked, and we'd go buy somebody big, and we got where we were really good at it. I think in one 18-month period, I bought Boatman's Bank shares, Barnett Bank, and the Bank of America, and all in 18 months. So it's a fairly big operation. So we weren't afraid of anything. I guess I don't know how much intuition I had, other than I had more desire than anything else.
Okay.
I didn't like being little. It just was not as much fun as being big.
What about the Marine Corps, your experience in the United States Marine Corps? Talk a little bit about the impact that had on your approach working with others.
Well, I think the thing that the Marines did for me is it changed my outlook on who I was. I guess growing up, I thought I was a South Carolinian and a Southerner. You go in the Marine Corps, and I came out of the Marine Corps, I'm an American. And I think it's real simple. I joined the United States Marine Corps, not the South Carolina Marine Corps, and it had a lasting impression on me. The other thing that I was taught is that the officers, you didn't eat till the troops ate, and you didn't order anybody up a hill. You led them up a hill, and sort of simple rules, but they stayed with me. And I always tell people I finished second in my basic school in tactics, and got a high grade on it because I said that the way to solve every field problem was frontal assault, and frontal assault were the three ways to do it. So they liked that. And so that's kind of the way I ran things.
Okay. Let me ask you about trust. You and I have talked about trust over the years. You were kind enough to be interviewed in my book around trust, and you talked about it as the white space between the organizational boxes. You didn't care as much about the structure, but building that trust in the white space. So what was your approach for building trust with others?
Well, I think trust is very simple. I used to say that if you can read a proxy statement, you can see that the CEO job is the one that gets paid the most money. And it's the best job. And it's the job in which you have 100% of the responsibility for running the company, 100% of the authority for getting it done, to get it done, and 100% of the accountability. But because even though I thought I was Superman, I knew I couldn't do it by myself. And you had to divide your responsibilities and assign them to other people. And in doing that, you placed your business life in their hands. And that's the first act of trust. They, in turn, had to trust me to be fair and equitable about judging how they carried out those responsibilities, and in fair and equitable in dividing the spoils of victory. And so that trust went on not only up and down, but cross and side and diagonally, because, for instance, the people that were out selling a product were not actually manufacturing it. In other words, somebody back in operations was actually making it happen. So you had to trust somebody that you didn't even know and maybe would never meet, that they would deliver what you were selling. So the whole business enterprise is based on trusting each other. But you have to earn that trust by your behavior, that you can be counted on. And that's really how we operated.
I read an article a couple of weeks ago that said that trust is in very short supply as a commodity in corporate America now, and it reminded me of something you said in the interview. You said that you delegated accountability, but you also delegated authority. And,
right.
And I feel like that maybe has changed over the last 20 years.
Well, I can't speak to that, but I do know that you can't give somebody a job to do and then not give them the authority to do it, or you can't give it to them and take it back. You have to give them the authority to do it and trust them to carry it out. And I think that is an error, that if you try to micromanage things, you're not going to be successful. You need to let people do their thing. I had a lot of really great people, and we didn't always agree with each other on how things should be done, but we'd agree on where we were going, and that's what really mattered, is getting where we wanted to go. So we were quite successful in it.
Let me ask you a question about something that we focus on in the McColl School of Business in the MBA program, and then we've got a very short video with some of our esteemed alumni that we're going to view here in just a moment. But before we get to that, we focus on resiliency and helping to build that capability to bounce back from a disappointment or a setback. And I wanted to ask you about a setback or obstacle or disappointment you had in your career. Could you tell us something that happened and how did you respond to it, and maybe what you learned from that going forward?
Well, I had a lot of them, but I guess the one that I remember the most and took the most grief over was when I made a hostile tender offer for CNS Bank in Georgia, and was unsuccessful and was drawn and quartered in the press and had my family attacked and every other thing that could possibly be done. So I decided I was going to try to change my style, that the aggressive hostility didn't work. So I had to make changes, and eventually about 2 years later I came back and bought CNS Sovereign, truthfully for less money than I'd offer CNS. And the way I handled myself on that I stayed up all night the night before. Well, first I went through a practice session with Joe Martin and Chuck Cooley, and they took me to task on, we pretended to be talking to Bennett Brown, the CEO, and they would correct me every time I did something that they thought was too hostile or too aggressive. And then I stayed up all night and read a book the entire night so that I'd take my body language down before I flew down to see him, to meet with him. And I was later told that I told the pilot I wanted him to land at the exact moment that I told him I'd be there. I said I'd be there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I wanted the wheels to touch at 9 o'clock, and it was in the middle of almost a hurricane. And we landed in bad weather. I never paid any attention to it. But anyway, I got off the plane and stepped into a foot of water. And but I was successful, and I was very calm, and I sat on the same side of the table with him and talking to him as opposed to across the table. So I always think of that's one time I overcame not only my bad behavior but my reputation. And we were successful. So I had that happen, and then I had other disappointments. First time we were talking with the Bank of America, they offered me the CEO job for 3 years, and then I would give it up, and it would go back to somebody from the Bank of America. And I remember all I had to do was reach out and shake hands, and I had a deal to make me chairman of that time would have been the largest bank in the United States. And I decided I wouldn't do it because it would be selling out my team. And I came back 3 years later and bought them without any of that. You know, I always remember them. I've had to deal with people telling me we moved the headquarters of the Bank of America to Charlotte. That never happened. We bought the damn company. The headquarters were always in Charlotte. I like to clear that up every time I get a chance. Incidentally, we should be honoring Anna Cockrell here tonight. I mean, for the tremendous race she ran.
That's what we should be doing.
I told Keith that when I saw her come across that last hurdle, and you could see in her face that she was going to get that thing, and she brought it home. So she's a terrific person, and we ought to honor her here in the city. I want to organize that. She's something else.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I've got a couple of questions from current MBA students. We opened up an email portal, and I had several that came in, but I had to only pick 2 or 3. The first one is about Charlotte as a city. You have a very unique perspective, and so this current MBA student wanted me to ask you, what do you see as the greatest opportunity for Charlotte, if you think about the future, but also what is the greatest threat that we face as a city?
Well, I think I can deal with the threat best. The threat is that we don't pay attention to the split we have in the socioeconomics of the city. That we've, as you know, the Chitty study that showed that we were 50 out of 50, we're now 38 out of 50 in terms of upward mobility. That number's way too high. We need to pay attention to the people who have had less advantages. And the way we really need to do that, as you know, is to train people to have good jobs that pay well, and then they can educate their own children and build their own houses. Yes. I know we always have the same problems no matter what year. I've been here 65 years, and it's always the same. Housing, jobs, transportation, these are the things that are always out there. But what we really need is to help train young people where they can make a good living, and then they can take care of educating their own children and building their own houses. So that, I think, reaching out to others is really our challenge. That is, reaching out to those in our city that have not had the advantages the rest of us have had. Because our city is very prosperous. I'm told we have 22,000 millionaires in this city. Really an astounding number. And we have a lot being made every day, but we have a lot of people who don't have enough to eat. So we need to figure out how to balance that. And I think the best way is through job training and creating jobs and helping them get educated. But it doesn't have to be liberal arts education, or it doesn't have to be an MBA. It can just be knowing how to do one thing really well and get paid for it. So that's what I think the challenge is. Now, what are we going to be? Our challenge is very real. Someone mentioned it earlier tonight with 115 people moving in here every day. We have the problem of what do we do with them? Not where do they work, but where do they live? How do we serve them? How do we deliver the services of the city to them? And we are struggling with that right now. And so the new rail is very important for transportation, because we don't have any place to build roads. We could, if we wanted to build one, where would we build it? And the point is we can't, and we can't really widen them anymore. So the issue for us is solving some of these problems are going to be very challenging, and the people that help solve those problems are going to make a whole lot of money. Yeah, so that's what I think.
What about the greatest opportunity? What do you see for the future of the city from an opportunity perspective?
Well, it's very difficult for me to answer that question because I think it changes all the time. This city has really thousands of people engaged in finance. We think about banking, but it's not just banking. We have many private equity firms. We have lots of people managing money for other people. We have people selling their products. So the city has been built around finance and still is. Of course, we all know that high tech is very, very important, and jobs are popping up all over the place with that. But I can't tell you what the jobs of the future are going to be, but it's going to always be, technology is going to be leading us, and so that's going to be important. But if you look at the medical profession, we employ more people in healthcare in this city than any other thing. And Wake Forest's medical school coming here is a tremendous boon for this city, and that's going to set off a boom in research and other things. So I wouldn't be surprised as far as being a great research city 25 years out in the medical area. So I think that'll show up in terms of a lot of educated people coming here, a lot of people that will contribute to the intellectual life of the city and philanthropically as well. So I'm very, very positive about the outlook for the city. And I think we're very lucky to have Queen's University. I think we're lucky to have the UNC here. I think we're lucky to have all the other schools like Wake Forest Business School and like UNC's business school that have come here. I think all those things are good for us. The issue for us, though, is reaching out across socioeconomic gap and pulling the, other people with us. Mm-hmm. That's the challenge for us.
That was it. We got a lot of press about the lowest ranking, and we've gotten some press about the moving in the right direction, as you said, to 38, but there's still a lot of room for improvement.
Well, we're going to be talking about that later this week. Maybe it's Friday. We're going to have a meeting uptown on it. I think there's going to be quite a crowd. You know, I almost didn't make it here tonight. I had a conflict, a very big one. My grandson and wife just had a baby. I got my first great-grandchild yesterday.
I got a little girl.
Tell us again. I don't think they heard.
I'm really excited about it. I said a new princess has been born. I'm sure we're going to spoil her. As long as we're alive, we're going to.
What's her name?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that. I'm terrible. You shouldn't have done that.
I'm sorry. Eloise Ann.
Eloise Ann.
Eloise Ann. Thank you.
That's close to right anyway. I'm terrible on names. Everybody knows that, but you don't know how bad I am, really. I couldn't remember yours all day today. No, really, it was.
I know.
It had me worried. I had to go find a memorandum to tell me who I was talking with. 89 is not really old, but it's not young either.
Let me ask you another student question. This one is a little more direct. This is from a first-year MBA student. And they said, please ask Mr. McColl, what advice would he give me? I want to be very successful.
Well, you know, I think it's pretty straightforward. Aim high and work hard. Those are two very simple things. And when in doubt, attack. No, seriously, I really think hard work, that's what your grandparents told you, your parents told you. Nobody likes to hear it, but hard work pays off. And if you're working when other people are playing, you're going to beat them. It's just a fact. And that's the way to be successful. But you have to aim high. You got to. I've always liked to be in charge. I mean, it's just it's more fun. So when I first came to work for the bank, there were 27 officers, and after I'd been there about 6 months, I remember sitting down with the report and looking at the 27 officers and thought, I'm smarter than 25 of them. So I wanted to be president from the day I got there, and I think that helped me get to be president because there weren't that many people were trying to be president. So that's why I say aim high. That's my advice.
Okay. And hard work.
And hard work.
So let me ask you one last question. This also from a current MBA student. Asking you to look back on your career. What are some of the things you are most proud of as you look back?
Oh, man. Well, I think the most important thing that I achieved, I could not have achieved without having had a good marriage, is my family. That is, raising 3 children and since then 8 grandchildren, and so that's the number one accomplishment that I had very little to do with, that my wife really was responsible for. So you could argue that may be part of the advice. You better marry well. So that would be one of the things. I'd say that I feel really good about what we've accomplished in building a city that's unlike any other city in America. This is the only city in America, only, I'm telling you it's the only one, that you can walk to the ballet, the opera, the symphony, pro baseball, pro basketball, and pro football, all in a 4 square mile area. And I think I would love to take all the credit for that, but that's not possible. I really give Gully Odell, the Odell plan, the 1966 plan, a tremendous amount of credit. I give our mayor, Harvey Gantt, a great deal of credit. Before him, John Bell.
Yeah.
We had good mayors, and Richard Benroot, a lot of them, quite a number of good mayors, and we've been a lucky city in the fact that we've been well led, and I'm proud to have been part of that. Now, I'm also proud of the fact that we built a really big bank, and people know where Charlotte is now. People have heard me say this before, but it's really the truth. We used to be we were so upset about not being important that we were worried that we weren't on the #1 bomb list for Russia on that if they had a nuclear attack. Somehow we had moved to the second tier of being bombed, and that really upset everybody. But we've come a long way from that. They probably will bomb us now. Anyhow, I think that I'm glad to have been here, and I've had and enjoyed participating in the growth of the city. But I don't think about my life as being over. I'm still operating, so I may find something I'm more proud of as I go forward.
I suspect you will. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a wrap. To our listeners, thank you for listening. This episode of the Charlotte Ledger Podcast is produced by Lindsay Banks.
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.